So thanks everyone for coming in and joining this little session. I know there's loads of other stuff going on today, so it's really nice that you're coming and sitting in on this ambiguously named Women in Tech talk. I basically got an email from Word Sussex that was like, we need a Women in Tech talk. And I'll get on to maybe why we need a Women in Tech talk, but I have given this an alternative title, which is just Everyone in Tech. Because I think rather than like explicitly focusing on women in tech, we should just look at like, I'll tell you about my career journey and how I got into tech. And then you can, see which bits are more women focused or which are not. So to start off with, I'll give you a little bit of background. I am Natalie. I'm one of the strategists at Pixeldot. We are everything's coming up. I hope you appreciated the shiny features that my colleague put into that. So we're a branding agency. Brand for me is really about bringing together these three things. So it's the kind of intersectional point of product and service, culture and reputation. It's where they all kind of collide and come together to form a really strong brand. So if you think of like Nike, because that's the brand that everyone thinks of when we hear the word brand, the products and services, obviously trainers, but it's also about going out and doing the like Nike women runs, all of that kind of thing. Culture, it's about empowering women and strong women. And if you follow them on Instagram, that like you can see that culture come to life. And if you do the Nike Women 10K, they put up banners the whole way along the racetrack that basically go like have these big "Go Girls" signs going on, which is great. It's lots of fun. And also like if you name your team that you're doing the run with, then they put up little posters of your faces that they get from your social media profiles, which is not creepy at all. And the reputation is obviously what people think of you. So all of those factors coming together is kind of what makes brand, in a sense. It's kind of like a Robert Bean principle called the single organising principle. It's what brings everyone together, both in the company and also outside of the company as well. But what does that really mean in digital terms? So most of my time I spend doing research, looking at systems architecture, so how all of those brand touchpoints come together, how they're communicated with people, both internally, so the systems that the staff actually use, and also externally, so the experiences that you have. So if you're on the Nike running app, is that really are you feeling empowered? Are you feeling like you can just do it because it's so easy to use? It's loads of fun. So that's really about user experience, audits and analysis, having a look at how that brand is communicated on their website as well. And then it gets more into like digital design. So I do a lot of wireframing which is kind of laying out the skeletons of websites or apps to help people understand how your users are going to flow through that content and experience. Social listening, which is kind of using social media monitoring tools to have a look at what people are saying about your brand online. And is that aligned to what your brand's actual purpose or values or goals are as a business? And then product development. So is your business missing out on any opportunities to develop new products? And if so, what those products are? Should your letting agent be engaged in virtual reality at all? Is that brand aligned or not? Should they be doing augmented reality? Should they have a Rightmove booking app? All of those kind of things. So that's kind of where I sit. And I thought I'd show you some of the projects that I've done over the past few years. This is Taqaddum. It was a project that we ran with Spark and Metal, who are the content designers, the British Council, and HSBC, who are the funders. It was still is, it's actually just coming to an end now, a learning and skills development program for students across 9 countries in the Middle East and North Africa. And they came together to develop soft skills like confidence, Spark, Metal, all through a series of in real life workshops, competitions between the different schools and countries, but also online as well. So we developed a big online learning platform where those students could participate in lots of different games and kind of share their experiences and their stories with each other, both in their own schools and also in different countries. So it's a really exciting project. And part of my role was working out, well, what do they need to get online that they're not getting in the offline workshops? And how do those two experiences sit really nicely together? So one of the things that we made sure we did was work really closely with the print designers, the people that were designing all of these printed posters, manuals, workbooks that were going out to all of the students in all of these different countries, and then make sure that that brand application was extended onto the online platform as well. And it's subtle things like that, but also making sure there's a consistency in messaging. Quite often when you work in tech, you come across projects like Taqaddum where there's loads and loads of different stakeholders are involved. So there's the print agency, there's the agency that designed the logo, 2 years ago, who the British Council really like, and they want to keep them involved. Then there's Spark and Metal, the content designers, who have their own understanding of the project, the British Council and the funders. So when it comes to digital, it's really about trying to get a sense of what everyone's needs are and how those can best be met in the project. So it's really loads and loads of fun to be involved in, and actually has helped lots of young people get really, or at least feel really confident and empowered going forward, which is really cool. This was a bit of it's a very, very different project. This was RBS non-core, and it was a project called Spotlight. And essentially, I don't know if you all remember that wonderful banking crisis where RBS may have done some bad banking practices. And the UK government bought out a whole load of RBS. Now, in order to claim back that bit of their business, RBS set up a new division called the RBS Non-Core, which was originally formed of 3,000 members of staff. Their only job was to shift all of the bad, toxic assets that were on their books off of RBS's books to get rid of them. Once they'd got rid of them, their job was done. And when I say their job was done, I mean their job was done. They no longer had a job or purpose in RBS. So I was brought in along with a creative agency in Reigate who specialise in culture change to kind of tackle this issue where RBS's non-core division had gone down from 3,000 to 300, and the 300, you would go into their office and they would kind of be scattered very, very remotely all across the room. And obviously, it's kind of like a weird, kind of slightly depressing culture because everyone's saying, yes, I'm really good at my job. I'm shifting loads of like these toxic assets. Great. And RBS is claiming back ownership of its own business. But also when I do this, I'm going to lose my job. So the project was actually about how do you instill a sense of value within those people? How do you get those people to know that RBS really cares about the work that they're doing, that they think that they're amazing people? And if they could, most of them, I think RBS would have liked to have kept on board and to shift it into different roles in RBS. But the reality was that wasn't going to be the case. So RBS's goals were really around making sure that people felt valued and they felt celebrated in the work that they were doing so that they could retain good relationships with those people as they moved into different organisations. So working with this culture change agency, we did a campaign that involved stickers on the walls, on the floors, interactive button stations all over their offices, email campaigns and desktops and desktop backgrounds, everything that was around the story of like celebrating them on this victory march. There was a really famous old infographic of Nelson going into Moscow and how he went in with a massive army, and as he kind of got further and further into Moscow, the army was depleting, but ultimately he was successful in his campaign. And it's meant to be one of the kind of like most prolific war stories of all time. So we were kind of playing on a similar motif, like what you're doing here is not only valuable to RBS, but it's really valuable to the whole UK economy. And as such, everyone had their names printed up on walls celebrating what they did. They had quotes from big deals that they'd made and landed. And then they had interactive kiosks around their office where they could every day come and essentially give their feedback on how they're feeling, on how they think of RBS Non-Core. And the whole kind of last 3 months of Non-Core's existence, they had all of this going on, and obviously stuff was going up all the time. So it kind of was like living in a scrapbook that's being built of your division. So it was really, really team building. So much so that it ended in a massive walk across the South Downs and a huge party with fireworks. And we got some amazing feedback from the staff. They said that it was one of the most memorable work experiences of their lives. And RBS did manage to retain a lot of really strong relationships with those people. And then, I don't know if anyone's been to Clerkenwell near Farringdon Station. This is Clerkenwell London. It's a concept store. I was brought in last summer to work with Clerkenwell London on their digital user experience. So if you go onto their website, one of the problems that they're having last year was that when you step into the real Clerkenwell London store, it feels really nice. It's amazing. Like, the designers that they brought in are all beautiful. There's a restaurant and a spa, and somehow all of these different things that they've got going on make sense because of the really well designed interior layout of the place. It's really easy to kind of flow through from looking at a nice bespoke designed vase to suddenly being in the restaurant having a cocktail, and that journey just makes complete sense. When you're on the website, you don't usually go to a clothing website to then also book a restaurant and maybe book a facial at the same time. That's a really uncommon user journey. Usually you go to one website to do one thing and one to do another. So I was brought in to have a look at how we make that journey a little bit more seamless through messaging, and also through the systems architecture. So what are the kind of digital roadblocks that are stopping that experience feeling as natural as it does in the store? So one of the things that we were looking at was that they didn't have a really good online distribution piece of software. So that was really holding everything up. You kind of got to the point in the sales journey online and then got cut off because you didn't really know when your package was going to arrive, and you might not check out at that point, and it all felt a bit clunky. And then if you went into the store, there were some items that were only on the shop front, and there was a big disparity between if you sold that item online, a member of staff would have to go along to their computer and then just keep hitting refresh to see if that item had been sold so that they could take it off of the shelf in the actual store. So that was obviously causing issues because they've got customers browsing the stores who might be buying the same product that someone is buying online. Big issues there. So I did a really big strategy report with them on those kind of nuances of experience that would kind of make their brand feel a little bit more cohesive both online and off. But this is all kind of interesting strategy work. It's a really nice place to be. But my journey into doing all of this was pretty unconventional. So like a lot of people, I started out thinking, I want to be an artist. And then I, during sixth form, won a Guardian Weekend photo prize, which during sixth form was great because I actually found out the day that I was about to go into my art tutor review. So I walked in and was like, hey, I won the Guardian Weekend photo prize, so I'm getting an A, right? And he was like, oh, I entered that as well. And I was like, yes, amazing. So what that gave me was a little bit of a carte blanche to go and do whatever art degree I wanted. So I went and did commercial photography at the Arts Institute in Bournemouth, or now the Arts University at Bournemouth, and realised in year 3 that I didn't actually like taking pictures. What I really liked was kind of the theory behind it. I loved art direction. I loved working with creatives, but the actual taking pictures and geeking out around a camera is not my bag at all. So when I finished my degree, I was talking to my tutor and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing now. I don't know what jobs there are out there when you've got a degree in commercial photography, aside from being a photographer or a photographer's assistant. And he was like, I've got this friend in New York. And I was like, yes, that sounds great. So I moved to New York and worked with a creative consultant who basically her job is to work with really high-end advertising photographers and to help them get the work that they want to get. So one of them was a guy called Bill Phelps, who has the most beautiful portfolio, and he looks like James Dean as well and has this kind of cool attitude. So he was just amazing. And he really wanted to get more work with Harley Davidson. So we worked with him to recreate recurate his portfolio in a way that it would appeal to Harley Davidson when he puts that portfolio on their table. What I got when I was working with Karen was that she kind of realised that I spend way too much time on the internet. And as such, she kind of started asking me these questions like, oh, well, how does this photographer communicate that new portfolio of work on their website? And I would come up with some ideas and say, well, I've seen these people doing this, and this is actually really trendy right now, or this is quite common, or The way that he's laid that out doesn't really make any sense because when you look at it on mobile, it looks a bit crap. And she was suddenly like, oh my God, wow, you actually know the internet. It wasn't because I'd studied it, and it wasn't because I'd actually done any like huge amount of research. It was because I actually use these tools and I do it on a daily or secondly or minutely basis, depending on how addicted to the internet I'm feeling. So I was sat in a meeting with Karen and one of our clients, who was a guy called Carl Fakhreddin. He owned a very big digital asset management, digital rights management software company. And he turned to Karen during the meeting and said, do you want to keep her? And I was on one of those 90-day visas in New York. And she was like, thinking about the legal fees involved in actually getting me a full-time visa. And she said, she kind of turned to me and was like, do you want to go and work in the south of France? And I said, yes, that sounds great. So I moved to Montpellier, started working at a software as a service company, and I'd never come across a software as a service before. I was like, software is a thing that you install on your computer, but no, software is a thing that lives in the cloud, and like we charge people every month, and we have this really amazing library that is responsive and it kind of grows in different ways over time. And my job was to come in and learn the software inside out to be able to market this company. It was the first kind of marketing role in the business, and they were turning over £2 million a year. So I was a bit like, oh my God, pressure. I ended up moving to Brighton, and I love Brighton. Brighton's great. And I kind of carried on working with photographers who don't really understand the internet. So the people that I'd engaged with in New York that had also known me from this software company started getting in touch with me quite organically and just saying, hey, you know how to use social media. Can you help me? I don't know what I'm doing. And as I just moved here, I was kind of like, should I charge for that? Is this going to be the thing that I do? And it was for a while. So I just started working for myself. And Brighton is actually hugely supportive of the kind of freelance gig economy. There are loads of freelancer meetups. It's really easy to like meet other people who will kind of spur you on to do that. So it worked out quite nicely. And then I realised that all of my clients were in London or mostly in New York, so I had no friends in Brighton. So I decided to get in touch with Tom Bailey, who's actually the guy that is running this event with Wired Sussex. And he had just run the very first TEDx Brighton in the Salisbury, so in the University of Brighton. And he wasn't sure about taking it on because it's quite hard to kind of scale it and find the time to manage it. And TED are very strict about their brand. And I thought, hey, if I run that, then I might meet lots of really cool, interesting people because I'll just have the license to email them and say, hey, I'm running a TEDx. Can I meet you? Can I chat with you? And that really was the case. I got to meet loads of people. So from 2011 to 2015, I ran TEDx Brighton, and we grew it from the conference in the Salisbury to now it's in the Brighton Dome with over 1,900 people in attendance, which is really cool. So also definitely go to TEDx Brighton because there's loads of cool stuff going on there. And from working at TEDx Brighton, one of the cool people that I met was a guy called Lorne, who owns a company called Fathom and another one called Ashdown Academy. And he was like, he kind of found out about some of the work that I'd done previously with photographers not really understanding the internet. And having worked in the software company, he said, well, one of the things that we're looking at the moment is taking our courses that we offer students online. Do you think you can come in and learn a bit about our business and help us do that? So I said yes, because that sounds like fun and I like the internet. And I started doing that. And then kind of rolling on a bit, I ended up commissioning a development outfit, which was then called Say Digital, to work with me on building this learning management system. And I ended up going into business with that company. We rebranded to Mahara, so we were a digital product studio. I then worked with Rich and the team to build out other products like a virtual reality content management system and an events management system, and got to do loads of really cool, interesting stuff. But I still was kind of thinking, oh, well, I've kind of fallen back into that really, really software-led role. And I really like the convergence between like the internet and software, but also creativity. And I was missing a lot of that in my life. So I had this like, but I want to be an artist moment. So at the beginning of this year, I left my company and all of my team, which was a very painful process, but much, much needed, and joined the wonderful team at Pixeldot. So it's been a bit of a mad journey to get here, and not a very expected one. What I really liked was the other day I was listening to a podcast called Design Matters, which is kind of like interviews with lots of different famous designers and creatives. And Carl Heiselman, who's the CEO of Wolf Ollens, one of the biggest branding agencies in the world, said all the emphasis whenever we're talking about like school, whether when we're talking to students at schools or in college or university, is you're either an architect or a designer, a scientist or an engineer or whatever, as opposed to what kind of life do you want to have, and where do you want to live? And those are actually some of the questions that I think I'd forgotten over time. I think I kind of had said, I quite like, this is fine, I'll just keep doing this, but it's not really what I wanted to do and what was what made me kind of thrive and what I was passionate about. So when I kind of think about my journey in technology, I actually don't think of it really in terms of that last slide and my kind of like higgledy-piggledy going all over the place, moving countries. I like to think of it like this. So when I was growing up, I grew up in a video library that my parents owned. I then got a Sega Mega Drive. In primary school, I was wearing Tamagotchis around my neck all the time. Yeah, you know they were cool. And then my brother and I got a PlayStation, and then the internet happened, and I had to tell my mum that she didn't have enough friends to call, so please let me go on the internet instead. She had to like put the phone down so that you could dial up the internet. And then I got MySpace and obviously like coded MySpace to make it look really shiny, and I had like flashing stuff all over it and it was great. And then they canned that because Facebook came along. There were obscure chat rooms that I spent loads of time in, just like learning loads of stuff about different things, because the internet was like this mystical place where you could like connect to people around the world. And I was quite young. That was like when I was kind of end of secondary school. So I was loving just this expanse, especially because I lived in the New Forest, which is a tiny, tiny little place. And I was in a little village, so it kind of blew my mind, the stuff that was going on outside of my world. And then I got Adobe Elements, which is like this really, really, really basic kind of hack-free version of Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator. And then we upgraded to a PS2. Excellent. Started using LimeWire because I was cool, but LimeWire is not cool. It was basically like Napster allowed you to rip music somewhat illegally off the internet. And then I kind of hustled through all of the Adobe suite, getting really into taking my photography that I was doing in sixth form and in uni and learning how to manipulate them, learning how to use Wacom tablets, and at the same time also getting totally addicted to YouTube and the kind of like vlogger community. And I then like wanted to learn more about tech and all of the stuff going on. So I kept coming across e-learning courses, so stuff like Coursera and Code Academy and Udemy, and then more recently FutureLearn. And I was like, there is so much cool stuff on the internet that just allows you to absorb all of this information about things that you find interesting. And then more recently, I've kind of gotten really interested in VR, and Wild Sussex actually have a really great VR meetup that's once a month, every Thursday, kind of ish. Go and have a look at it. It's part of the Digital Catapult thing, and you can go along and essentially like play with other people's VR headsets and the games that they've made, and it's amazing. So I like to think of my journey into tech as one that's really been just inspired by things that I'm passionate about and things that I find quite exciting in life. And that is all of these things and so much more. But how do you kind of like explore those passions? Obviously, I mentioned that e-learning is a really great place to start if you are kind of thinking, oh, I quite like the sound of user experience design, or I kind of like the sound of even building online courses. You can go and do online courses on building online courses. It's actually by the University of Edinburgh, and it's on FutureLearn and Coursera if you are interested in that. But more locally, it's really good to actually get out and meet people and explore those passions with other people and see what they're doing. So the Wild Sussex VR meetup is really good. But we're actually really sport for choice in Brighton. We've got Ladies That UX, which is like a monthly series of talks. Pixels and Prosecco. Who wouldn't want to go to that? Code Bar Brighton, which is where you can actually go and learn to code. They help pair you up with mentors, whether that's like front-end coding or back-end. She Says Brighton, which is a kind of quarterly meetup group that basically do kind of talks like this. So it's people coming up, talking about their experience, sharing that with you, and helping you kind of get inspired or have your mind blown by lots of really interesting people. And actually, this month is Spring Forward Festival. So the whole of this month, there are loads and loads and loads of events going on. So if you go to We Spring Forward as the website, then you'll see all of the events listings. Instagram, go for it. So briefly to touch on, why are we talking about women in tech? Well, obviously I had a somewhat shitty experience in France, and I have had somewhat shitty experiences since. But there are also really wonderful things going on for women in tech. And for me, having this talk and having meetup groups about women in tech is really about trying to change some of the statistics that are out there. So if you look at Google, only 19% of the technical roles at Google are held by women, which is really not good enough. Airbnb is quite interesting. They have a 40% female workforce, but 0% of those are in technical roles. And Uber, I don't know, as a show of hands, who heard about the recent Uber? Yeah, a few of you. So in Uber, there is, in one of their offices, there is 120 developers, and 6 of them were female engineers. One of them, if you want to read the full story, her name's Susan J. Fowler, and you can go and have a look at her account of her experience at Uber. But essentially, they were doing really stupid things, like they set a target for all of the developers and said, if you will meet this target, we'll buy you all Uber leather jackets. Won't that be cool? And they hit it, because everyone was super incentivized by getting a nice free leather jacket. And then they turned to the women and said, oh yeah, but we're not going to get you guys leather jackets because actually there's too few of you. There's only 6 of you, and we get a really big discount on ordering all the guys' jackets. Yeah, I know. But that was only the smallest part of the crap that was going on at Uber, unfortunately. So, there is a lot of change that still needs to happen in our industry. And one of the biggest reasons why we need to address that change is a business reason, because diversity impacts on the bottom line of businesses. McKinsey, who are one of those big, ghastly consultancy firms, actually did a big study on the diversity of organisations and its fiscal impact. And they found that organisations with a greater sense of diversity, and I mean that in all forms, not just gender, but also race and ethnicity background, were 20% more profitable than other businesses. So we need to get more diverse, just because it will make us all more profitable. It will make us all more money. And then also, from my perspective, the future is very diverse as well. I think if we're looking at technology in particular, whenever we're building tech, whoever is doing that building is designing for people that they know and people that they understand. And if that group of people doing the designing, doing the building is very small, we're operating in ever-decreasing circles. We're creating technology that doesn't take into account the further implications of the people that could be using it or could be affected by it. So we need to really build diversity into the products that we're making, and we're only going to do that if more people actually get into technology in the first place. And also, why wouldn't you want to work in tech when you could be like these people? I don't know if anyone came out of this film. I basically came out and I was like, space and women. It was amazing. There are some amazing people. I don't know if anyone's seen Imogen Heap and her Mimu gloves. They're amazing. I don't really have time to show you the video, but I highly recommend checking them out. There's loads of cool stuff in tech at the moment. And here's a whole group of other people that are inspiring me. So Emily Grassley is a YouTuber who's embedded at the Field Museum in Brighton, in Chicago. She basically loves history, loves anthropology, and ran this YouTube channel where she was exploring the archive collection of a local museum, the Field Museum, who are huge, saw what she was doing, and they were like, you should come and become our resident vlogger. And she was like, yes, that sounds amazing. Swiss Miss in the middle has a blog and a bit of an empire now. She started a tech application called Taqaddum. Kate Genevieve on the side here is from Brighton, and she makes VR sensorial performance experiences. She's an artist. Hannah Harger in the corner here is the curator of the Singapore kind of digital design museum. And Ibjan is she's in the House of Lords now. And Bishi is a performance artist that I met last week who blew my mind. She was wearing like a gesture-controlled suit that allowed her to make music and record her voice at the same time, and there were visuals, and it was all mad. And then obviously another hero is Simone Getch, who you might know her. She makes shitty robots. She's got a whole YouTube channel around shitty robots. So there's loads and loads of different ways that you can be in technology, and loads of people that you can be inspired by. I think now is a really great time to get involved in tech because there's just so much going on. There's VR, AR, AI, robots, space, so much going on. It's I find it particularly inspiring. So to kind of finish off, so you can all kind of disappear and go on to all of the other cool stuff that's going on today, I'm going to finish with some top tips. The first one being that unconventional journeys into technology is totally fine. In fact, it kind of benefits you to have a much broader experience in lots of different things, because technology isn't something that's separate to what we do. It's something that's integrated into everything we do. Whether you want to get into design or branding, or even if you want to run a business, you kind of have to do technology. You have to understand it to some extent. It's everywhere. So there is no right way in. You don't need to necessarily study computer science. But what you do need to do is kind of have an attitude of not letting stones go unturned. If something is of interest to you, if something is inspiring, then find out a little bit more about it. Turn the stone over, dig a bit deeper, go and do a YouTube course on it. Burnout is a massive thing in our industry. I definitely spent a very long time kind of getting really into trying to launch a product and then getting really, really ill afterwards. It's kind of endemic in the tech industry that because things are moving so fast, you need to move so fast as well. And it's not good for you, and it's not good for our industry. And there's kind of like a counter movement going on at the moment where everyone's trying to be a bit more mindful. So there's lots of new mindfulness for technologists courses that you can go on. Communities are rad, whether they are online or off. So I have mentioned a few of them in this talk, like She Says and Ladies That UX. They're not just female exclusive. You can go if you are a man as well. But obviously they're trying to increase that diversity level, so they are kind of female focused. And if something excites you, just go and explore it. I hope that I've kind of laden my talk with some interesting things so that you can go away and have things that you want to explore, and hopefully I'll see more of you guys in technology soon. And if you want to tweet me, I'm there. You can't see the background, which is full of robots and aliens, which is such a shame. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time.